The Power of Kindness, a Thanksgiving Miracle. Hi everyone, welcome back to Life Tells Stories. Today, we have an extraordinary story about kindness, sacrifice, and an incredible twist of fate that no one could have predicted. This is the story of how a humble mechanic named John Harris gave up his Thanksgiving dinner to help a stranded family. But what he didn't know was that the family held a secret that would transform his entire future. Do you think a single act of kindness could change your life forever? Stick around because this story is going to take you on a roller coaster ride that proves just how powerful even the smallest choices can be. Make sure you subscribe to our channel, Life Tells Stories, and hit that like button if you love hearing real-life miracles that restore your faith in humanity. The story begins in a small town in Michigan on a cold Thanksgiving evening. John Harris, the owner of a struggling auto repair shop, was working late, sitting alone in his small, dimly lit office. He had bills piling up and fewer customers than ever. The harsh November wind rattled the windows, reminding him how difficult life had been lately. He was the kind of man who never gave up, but these challenges were starting to wear him down. The business was struggling to stay afloat, and John felt the weight of responsibility for his employees, his family, and his own survival. His sister, Linda, called to ask if he was still coming for Thanksgiving dinner. She reminded him that the kids were eagerly waiting to see him, and John smiled, picturing his niece and nephew, who always brought joy to his heart. John loved his family and needed a break, but he also knew that every hour mattered in keeping his shop open. Just as he was about to close up and drive to his sister's house, the phone rang. It was an unknown number. John hesitated for a moment, debating whether to answer. It was Thanksgiving, after all. But something in him decided to pick up, and what he heard on the other end would change everything. At 4:30 p.m., just as John was about to head to his truck to drive to his sister's house, his phone rang. An unknown number flashed across the screen. Hesitant, he answered, and a worried woman's voice came through. "Hello, is this Harris Auto Repair?" The voice sounded desperate, almost on the verge of tears. "Our car broke down on Highway 23, and we have 2 young children with us. We've been calling every repair shop in the area, but no one is answering because it's Thanksgiving." John paused, listening to the distress in the woman's voice. He could hear children crying softly in the background. She explained that they were on their way to Chicago to see her sick mother, who had just been admitted to the hospital. They were stranded, cold, and scared. John knew his sister was waiting for him, and he hated the thought of disappointing his niece and nephew. But he also knew that he couldn't just ignore the plea for help. He took a deep breath, and without hesitation, he made a choice that would define everything that followed. He told her, "I'll be there to help." He could sense the relief in her voice as she gave him their location, and John quickly grabbed his tools, locked up his shop, and drove out into the growing storm. The snow had started falling more heavily as John drove down Highway 23. The wind whipped against his truck, and the road was becoming slippery. After 20 minutes of driving carefully through the worsening conditions, he spotted a black SUV on the side of the road, hazard lights flashing. A man named Michael stood outside, waving a flashlight. John pulled over and got out, the biting cold hitting him instantly. Michael introduced himself, visibly shivering, and explained that his wife, Jessica, and their 2 children were inside the car, trying to stay warm. John looked inside and saw Jessica wrapped up with the kids, all bundled in blankets. The children looked scared and tired. John knew time was of the essence. The temperature was dropping quickly, and the car's engine wouldn't start. He could see the desperation in Michael's eyes. "We're just trying to get to Chicago," Michael said, his voice cracking. "Jessica's mom is in the hospital. We just don't know what else to do." John introduced himself and quickly began inspecting the vehicle. After a few minutes under the hood, he realized that the engine had a major fuel injection issue, and there was no way it could be fixed on the side of the road. The repair would take several hours, and it wasn't safe for the family to stay there. John knew what he had to do. "I'll tow your car back to my shop," he said. "It's warmer there, and you can wait while I fix it." Michael and Jessica looked at each other, their expressions of gratitude clear even through their exhaustion. They nodded, and John hooked up the SUV to his tow truck. Back at the shop, John worked tirelessly to fix the SUV. His hands were cold, his back ached, and he hadn't eaten anything since morning. But he kept at it, knowing how important it was for the family to get to Chicago as soon as possible. He watched Jessica try to comfort the children, pulling out some coloring books she had packed for the trip, trying to distract them from the long wait. The children looked up at John every now and then, their eyes filled with hope. Michael paced the small waiting area, constantly on the phone, speaking in hushed tones, trying to reassure other family members that they were okay and that they'd be on their way soon. Jessica's face was a mix of worry and exhaustion, and John couldn't help but think about his own mother, who he had lost 2 years ago. He knew how important it was to be there for family, and he knew he had to get this done, no matter how tired he was. 3 hours passed, and finally, the repair was complete. John had replaced several parts, doing everything as quickly as he could, but also ensuring that the car was safe to drive. When Michael asked for the bill, John hesitated. He knew the parts alone cost over $800, and he couldn't bring himself to charge for labor. Not today. Not to a family in such dire need. "Just pay for the parts," John said, handing Michael the invoice. "Consider it a Thanksgiving gift. Just make sure you get your family safely to Chicago." Jessica's eyes welled up with tears, and she hugged John, whispering a heartfelt thank you. Michael shook John's hand, clearly moved, and handed him his business card. "People like you are rare. Thank you for everything." The next morning, John arrived at his shop early, as usual. He was tired, his muscles ached, but he felt good about the decision he had made. As he went through his pocket, he found the business card that Michael had handed him. It was simple, white, with bold black letters. John's eyes widened as he read it. Michael Thompson, CEO of Thompson Automotive Industries, the largest car parts manufacturer in the Midwest. John could hardly believe what he was seeing. He had just helped the CEO of a billion-dollar company, but despite the shock, he didn't regret his decision. He had done what felt right, regardless of who the person was. Kindness shouldn't depend on a person's status. It's about doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. A week passed, and the reality of John's struggling business came back in full force. The bank had threatened foreclosure, and John had to make the difficult decision to let one of his 2 employees go. He felt like he was fighting a losing battle, and hope was slipping away. Then, one cold December morning, a black limousine pulled up in front of his shop. Out stepped Michael Thompson, wearing a suit that looked like it could cost more than John's monthly income. Michael smiled warmly at John and asked if they could have a word in private. Inside John's modest office, Michael got straight to the point. "After you helped us, we made it to Chicago just in time," Michael said, his voice sincere. "Jessica's mother is recovering, and we couldn't be more grateful. But that's not the only reason I'm here." He paused, looking John in the eyes. "Your kindness that night impressed me more than words can express. I did some research on your shop and found out that people in this town think highly of you. They speak about your honesty, your fair prices, and your integrity. And that's exactly what I need." John listened, still unsure of where this was going. Michael continued, "I'm expanding Thompson Automotive. We're opening authorized service centers across the country, and I want your shop to be our first flagship location." John was stunned into silence. Michael handed him a contract and explained the terms: full funding for renovations, new equipment, staff training, and the promise that John would retain ownership of the shop with full autonomy. "We'll back you fully," Michael said, "but we won't change who you are. No more financial struggles, John. You keep your name on the shop, and we'll take care of the rest." John's hands shook as he took the pen. He thought about all the times he had helped people, despite his own struggles, and how that simple decision to help a family on Thanksgiving had brought him to this point. He signed the contract, and Michael shook his hand firmly. John could hardly believe what was happening. Within weeks, John's small repair shop transformed. New equipment arrived daily, and the worn-out sign outside the building was replaced with a sleek, new one that read, Harris Auto Care, a Thompson Automotive partner. His old employee returned, and 5 new skilled mechanics joined the team. The shop that once struggled to stay afloat was now thriving, bustling with new customers, many of whom had heard about the Thanksgiving miracle. But what stood out most was that John stayed true to his principles. He continued to offer fair prices, honest advice, and high-quality work. He didn't change the way he treated people, despite the sudden growth in business. His reputation for integrity grew quickly, and soon people began traveling from neighboring towns just to have their cars serviced at Harris Auto Care. They wanted someone they could trust. One day, Jessica and her children came to visit the shop. They brought homemade cookies, and Jessica's eyes filled with gratitude as she spoke. "My mother often talks about you," she said softly. "You're the reason she got to see her grandchildren that Thanksgiving." The children handed John a drawing they had made of him fixing their car, and he felt his heart swell with emotion. It was moments like these that reminded him of what really mattered. John never sought fame, but local news channels got wind of the story, and soon reporters were visiting the shop to interview him. They called it the Thanksgiving Miracle, and featured him in stories about how one small act of kindness had transformed not only his own life, but the lives of others as well. John was humble about the attention. He knew it wasn't just about that one snowy night. It was about every time he had chosen to be kind, even when no one was looking. His kindness had come back to him in ways he could have never imagined, and he felt grateful for all of it. Michael Thompson became not just a business partner, but a friend. He invited John to industry events, introducing him to important figures in the automotive world. "This is the man who taught me what true service means," Michael would say, his arm around John's shoulders. John stayed humble, always remembering where he came from. What do you think? Would you have done the same if you were in John's position that cold Thanksgiving night? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts on how one decision can ripple out and change everything. With the success of the partnership, John realized he could do more than just run a successful business. He could help others in the community who were struggling, just as he once had. He started a program to help low-income families with car repairs, providing services at a fraction of the cost or even for free. He knew what it felt like to have no options, and he wanted to be there for others. Michael fully supported the initiative and matched every dollar that John put into the program. Together, they turned it into a fund that helped countless families across Michigan. It wasn't just about fixing cars, it was about restoring dignity, hope, and the belief that someone out there cared. The bank that once threatened to foreclose on John's shop now featured him as a success story. They even used his story in their promotional materials, highlighting his journey from near foreclosure to incredible success. But John always made sure they included how Michael had taken a chance on him because of an act of kindness. John didn't stop there. He started a foundation to help young people learn automotive repair, providing scholarships, tools, and mentorship. "Everyone deserves a chance," he would say. And with Michael's backing, the foundation grew into $1 million program that helped young people across the state. Many of the students ended up working at Thompson Automotive after they graduated, starting new lives for themselves. 3 years after that snowy Thanksgiving night, John's small shop had grown into a network of 10 locations across Michigan, each one following his principles of honesty, fair pricing, and kindness. He was now overseeing all 10 shops, but he never lost sight of where he started. Every Thanksgiving, John kept the original shop open, providing emergency repairs for stranded travelers, never charging for labor that day. "It's our way of keeping the spirit of that night alive," he would tell his employees, reminding them of the importance of giving back. The drawing Jessica's children made that night still hangs in John's office. It's a constant reminder of where it all started. A single choice to help a family in need. Last week, another stranded family came into the shop. John worked on their car himself, just like in the old days. The father asked why someone as successful as John still worked on cars. John smiled and said, "Sometimes the smallest choices have the biggest impact." That night, I could have driven by, but instead, I chose to stop. That choice changed everything. The man nodded, understanding the deeper message in John's words. It wasn't just about fixing cars. It was about helping people. This story isn't just about a mechanic helping a family. It's about how every act of kindness can ripple out and affect the lives of so many others. John Harris chose compassion, and in return, he received a new life, a thriving business, and the chance to help countless people. We hope this story touched your heart as much as it touched ours. It's a powerful reminder that kindness costs nothing, but can be worth everything. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to Life Tells Stories and hit that like button so we can continue sharing these amazing true tales with you. Leave a comment below telling us how this story made you feel. Until next time, stay kind, stay hopeful, and remember, even the smallest choices can change everything. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.